seen this image before, even if you haven't seen this image before. It's a store that's going out of business faster than the out-of-business store that's next to it can get a new tenant as street-level retail takes it to the net. Now, the classic response to this dilemma is that this is a cyclic problem, that the American consumer will eventually find a credit card down the back of the couch and go back to spending like a sailor on shore leave. But I don't think that's happening at this time, not just because of the stores that are closing, but because of the stores that are staying open. You walk down any commercial strip in New York, here's how it goes. There's a bank, then there's a place to buy a cell phone, there's frozen yogurt, there's a shoe store, there's a drugstore, then there's another bank branch, and another place to get a cell phone. It's like a Hanna-Barbera cartoon with the same scenery going by over and over again. Right? So I don't think this is cyclic. I think this is structural. I think this is another episode of something that's only happened twice previously in the last 100 years, and ominously both previous times. The first one was the lofts. In the 1950s, people who made glassware and belt buckles in Manhattan realized to make belt buckles in Manhattan, and they left. And the landlords in the city said, don't do a thing, don't change anything, because you never know when the belt buckle guys are going to come back. Now, eventually, lofts got converted to living spaces, first for artists, then for everybody, but it took 30 years. Then it happened again in the 70s. The oil shock and the containerization meant that big ships stopped pulling into Brooklyn. And the people who owned the piers and the city said, whatever you do, don't change a thing, because you never know when the big ships are coming back. We knew when they were coming back. The big ships were coming back the day after the belt buckle guys came back. And now it's happening again. The internet has evacuated whole categories of street-level commerce. We've already done books and movies. We've already done music and comics. But now there's people working on shoes and kitchen appliances and furniture. And it's not like 50% of that stuff needs to go online to change the landscape. Because when 5% goes online, the store that's got the worst margins tips from profit to loss. So what do we do now? Last time, with the loss, we converted them to personal space. That won't work because people don't want to live at street level. And with the piers, we converted them to parks. But that won't work. We can't make these spaces public because they're enclosed and they're often small. We might, however, be able to make them social, because that's what's gone missing. Back in ye olden times in 1997, if you wanted to buy something, that generally meant you had to talk to somebody. And the internet has taken that bundle of transaction and interaction and has sliced it in half and has moved the interaction piece up into the ether. Often to good effect, I have to say. I spent a lot of time hanging out in comic book stores when I was young, and I can tell you from firsthand experience that comic book stores are lousy places to buy comics. They're badly stocked and they're badly staffed. But they were great places to hang out. Right? The question is, will people pay to get the interaction that we used to get as a side effect of commerce? And the answer is yes, at least in certain circumstances. We can already see people doing this now. If you talk to anyone who goes into a hackerspace or a co-working studio or a writer's room, they always say three things. They say, I wanted to get out of the house. They say, I wanted a place to work. They say, I wanted to be around other people. They always price in their desire to be in a place with other people into their rationalization. This is more than just the coffee shop overcharging you in order to provide the hangout space. This is an affirmative choice in the direction of social life. We're used to thinking that the retail spaces are going to fill back up with retail, but we actually have an older model of this on the street that we can see everywhere. Street front mosques, street front churches that move in. These are not commercial. They are not selling a product, at least not one you can buy on the open market. And they don't have a business model. What they say is, if you like it here, we're going to pass the hat. And that's it. And they pass the hat. And they manage to get enough money to keep the place open in both senses of the word. So what do we need? If we want more of that, if we want more of the social piece at street level, what do we need? We need new ways for cooperative groups of people to come together, to be able to sign leases together, to raise money, just to lower the transaction costs. We may, in some cases, need zoning changes. But those things, annoying as they are relatively easy to get. What we really need is a cultural change. It doesn't take 30 years to convert lofts to living spaces. It doesn't take 30 years to convert piers to parks. The reason those things took so long It took that long for people to realize that what seemed to be happening was actually happening. And the question I'm asking myself is this. We've seen this movie twice before. We can see what's happening. Can we do this in 5 years, or do we really have to wait?